Again, good morning and welcome. And for the last class of this particular text, before we start new subjects from next week. So again, we will start as usual. Just try to make yourself comfortable, relaxed. And feel the weight of your body on cushion, chair, surrounding. Feel and be aware. And as you breathe in and out, try to keep your mind watching, observing mindfully, and being aware of that. Then we can try to have good intention, motivation for being here. And we can try to think the purpose of my life is not just only to be just concerned with just myself, but also to be concerned with others and to be whatever help, benefit that we can be, directly, indirectly, through any of three doors, body, speech, and mind. And whenever is possible, but in order to be greatest help and benefit and to all sentient beings, we ourselves must become more enlightened. Trying to overcome those afflictive emotions or defilements. And to cultivate and increase positive state of mind, the spiritual realizations. Such as to love, compassion, bodhicitta, wisdom realizing emptiness, so forth. And to be able to do that, we need to practice. Without practice, there's no way we can cultivate and improve, increase our mind. And in order to practice, we need to know how to practice correctly. We need to be reminded of the practice all the time. That's why we have come here together. May act of my listening, engaging in discussions, reflecting, contemplating. May all of these become cause and conditions to obtain our highest potential, the fully awakened state, the Buddhahood. So not only we can be benefit and help to others, but we can be greatest help and benefit to others and oneself. And not only others few, but to each and every sentient beings. Yeah. Until I am enlightened with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Supreme Self, may I sacredly listen to the Dhamma. Have become Buddha in order to benefit all sentients. Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam Ma Chanchu Patu Dane Gatsu Che Agi Che She Gibe So Namge Dola Penje Sangye Doba Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam Chanchu Patu Dane Gatsu Che Agi Che She Gibe So Namge Dola Penje Sangye Doba Angye Duje Nirone, O Damje Pongbeje, Nambechune Denjebe, Wadam de la Chaps. So we have been studying Atisha Divamkara's Lamb of the Path to the Enlightenment. And we have, within that, we have finished, starting with the practice of, common practice of small scope, and then progressing towards the common practice of middle scope, and then the actual Mahayana or Bodhisattva practice of great scope. And within that, starting with cultivating the bodhicitta mind, and having cultivated the bodhicitta mind, then engage in the practice of the six perfections. And here in Atisha's writing, he focused mainly on among the six perfections, mainly the three perfection, the moral discipline, concentration, and the wisdom. So we also finished that, and then having trained oneself in those common path. Common path means common to both sutra and tantra. Common path or the foundation. Then, in order to engage in the tantric path, then first receiving the initiations from qualified masters. And once we receive the initiation, then one of the most important is to keep the pledges, the vow, the samaya. That is the most important. If we take the initiation, if we don't keep those vows, those pledges, then then we create more negative karma. So to keep in one of the Indian masters, one of the 100 teachings, it is explained that if we keep those pledges, commitments purely correctly, even we are unable to practice so much, but by able to keep those pledges and the commitments, in that commentary, in that text, it says within the 16 or 17 lifetime, then you will achieve enlightenment. So anyway, keeping those pledges is very important. And then, of course, the reason to take initiations is so that we can study and practice. So we also discussed a little bit about the difference between the sutra and tantra. Different practice method you find in tantra that you don't find in sutra. Of course, all the practice in sutra is common. That you practice both in tantra and sutra and tantra, but there are certain practice that we discussed. And within the tantra, we talk about there are 4 classes of tantra, and we also spoke about that, the differences between those different classes of the tantras, and what are the main practice in each of those tantras. Also, we discuss even in initiation, there's a difference between the lower tantra and the highest yoga tantra. Yeah. So I think last week we talked about some of the practice that you find in a lower tantra, and the practice in lower tantra, as I mentioned, the practice of with the sign and without sign, those 2 main practice. And then in terms of highest yoga tantra, the main practice is generation stage and completion stage. Sometimes they translate generation, sometimes they translate development. But anyway, those are the 2 main practice, starting with the generation stage. And then as we make progress in that, then we move to the completion stages. And without going so much detail, because I don't think we don't need at this point, in generation stage is you generate and visualize, the whole environment as mandala, celestial, generating and visualizing all being in that as a deity, and you're yourself as a deity. Everything's, and then on the basis of that, then holding the divine pride, that you are that deity, instead of having ordinary perception of yourself, but holding the divine pride that you are that deity. While you see yourself deity and visualize yourself deity, at the same time, from one corner of your mind, you also understand that is empty of inherent nature. Even this deity, even yourself who is deity, is also not inherently existent. So while you while you are able to keep the visualizing that deity, at the same time from one corner, able to remind yourself of emptiness of that deity. And so when you do visualize, of course we started, visualizing gradually, and so that is why it is called, you generate or visualize all these gradually, and so it's that is why generation or development stages. So again, is to overcome, through such visualization, we overcome the ordinary appearance and grasping. Through having that divine pride, you try to overcome the ordinary perceptions of yourself or surrounding by reminding, by being aware that is empty of inherent nature. Then you are able to overcome the grasping, the ordinary perception, ordinary grasping, which give rise to many of afflictive emotions due to those ordinary perception and grasping. So, and then part of that, within that part of the generation stage, and then how to, it is training yourself to take, engage in the path that transforms ordinary death and intermediate stage, parto, and the rebirth into the path. So that is the main focus in generation stages on that, Of course, at this moment, we are not really going through those stages, death, pardo, or reincarnation in this at the moment. But through practice, through certain visualizations, you just, as I mentioned before, you dissolve the whole merit field, into the deity dissolve into yourself, and you yourself, whatever deity you have visualized, also dissolve in the emptiness. You dissolve into light, the light becomes smaller, and then completely dissolve into the emptiness. You try to meditate on emptiness, and then while you are dissolving, then you try to, do the meditations on a dissolutions, as we mentioned before, when the earth element dissolve, the external sign, internal vision signs, and then slowly the water element dissolve. That is what happens when we die. So at the moment we practice being in those stages as though we are in that stage. Then fire element dissolve and different signs, external, internal signs, and then wind element dissolve and external, internal signs. Then slowly the gross consciousness dissolve. All the gross consciousness dissolve. From there, then there are no more external sign, but internal sign. And then, the mind of white vision, red vision, dark vision dissolve. And then, clear light mind manifest. And then you try to meditate on emptiness in that clear light mind as much as possible, And from that clear light mind, then instead of having a heart ordinarily, then you generate the wish to be benefit to sentient beings, and from that, and then there's a manifestation in your practice, in sadhana, and part of your visualization and generation. Then you generate in a sambhava kaya deity, and then slowly, even with that sambhava kaya deity, even though you can benefit some sentient beings, the more, higher sentient beings who have more pure karma, but you not being able to ordinary sentient beings. In order to benefit the ordinary sentient beings, then again you generate a strong wish to manifest as a nirvana kaya, and then again you visualize the form of that particular Buddhas, and so that is like in Yamataka, first you visualize the Sambhava kaya in the form of what you call Manjushri, and then the Manjushri dissolve dissolve, and then that manifests in a Yamataka. That is a Nirmanakaya in that sense. So like any particular that is how normally the process. So this is one, and when we practice, then if we make a progress, eventually, when actually that really happens, we might be able to transform that death into a nirmanakaya instead of taking an ordinary hardo intermediate stage. Then practitioners, transform that hardo into a illusory body, and with that illusory body, then they can, instead of rebirth, ordinary rebirth, then they achieve enlightenment, and so that is that is training at the moment in that. So that is one of the main practice of intermediate, generation stage, what we call kerim, development or generation stages. And also, in generation stage, as your visualizations, as your concentration get better and better, it is said that, like when you really perfect that stages, you can visualize within very small, tiny space, just a small drop, whole mandala in that very clearly. At the moment, even we visualize as big as this house, still we cannot visualize clearly. But when a practitioner, when they get better and better with their concentrations, then even with this very small drop in their heart, they can visualize the whole mandala very clearly. And then, of course, when we reach those stages, then of course, then we can make progress or move to the completion stages. So in completion stages, then you are not actually just visualizing, then you are really using, through the initiations, it bless and your channels, your drops, elements, your mind, and make it more potential, more powerful. And then in practice, you use those, different elements, drops and channels, chakras, and through that, then you try to dissolve all your mind into the very heart, the center of your heart, psychological heart. One is then through such practice, one is able to drop, and as you drop or dissolve all your mind into the central channels, and then as the drop follow, from the crown to the from crown channel to the throat channel, from throat channel the heart channel, from heart channel to the navel channels, and like that. Then with each of them, then therefore emptiness, to get that emptiness, and therefore great blissfulness. And through that, then the greatest blissfulness one generated forth, and then with that great blissfulness, then you engage into meditation emptiness, and then try to combine the blissfulness and emptiness, and through that, then that is how one's transform. So anyway, so within the completion stages, again, there are, gradual stages, what we call Ngayan, Samyan, Wesel, Yulu, Sungju, four stages, isolation of what we call direct translation, isolation of the speech, isolation of the mind, illusory, clear light, and the union. And through that, then when within the union, and there is a union on the path, and the union when you achieve enlightenment. So that is just a basic kind of what you call introductions, okay? To go in very detail, I myself doesn't know so much. Experientially, I can explain theoretically, but in terms of, and when you reach to those stages, like completion stages, it needs to be guided by someone who has experience, not just theoretically, who is able to explain, but who should be able to guide with their experience. And so there is no point of discussing as well. So then, trying to complete the last verses or last second verses from the Atishas, because that is where we are. So here he says, for those who have received the Vajramasa empowerment and have knowledge of suchness, there is no fault in receiving teaching any tantra, performing fire puja, offering, and so forth. So again, without one having received the initiation oneself, normally, you are not allowed to study, you are not allowed to teach, you are not allowed to engage in a lot of ritual ceremony that's related with such practice. So you need the empowerment to be able to do that. That is what empowering you to study, to practice. And when you have all the qualification also to teach or do the ceremony, but again, just receiving empowerment is not enough to do many of those rituals or ceremonies. You need to do retreat. It's not just enough to receive the initiation. You need to do certain retreat, and the retreat, there are certain things that you need to do retreat. It's not just like I do 1 week retreat or 2 week retreat, and that is, you have to do according to the sadhana. You have to do the correct retreat, and then there is at the end there are fire puja that you need to do. After doing all of that, then even in some cases, and even with such, generally one is, and if you know the knowledge, if you know about that, whatever teachings, deity, then normally you are allowed to teach, you are allowed to in general. But especially in a lot of time, even that is not enough. A lot of teachers will not give, even they have done all the retreat and everything. Basic requirement they have. They have done they have received their initiations. They have done the required retreat. They know the subjects. They know how to do the empowerment, all of them, but they will not give. They will not do that. Unless on top of that, sometimes certain people, practitioners, have a visions of that deity, giving them permissions through visions. Or sometimes or teachers, give authority or permission to do that. So they have to be, and so therefore, sometimes sometimes some might not follow it, and they just So if you have all of that, then there is no fault in receiving, of course, receiving, teaching Andhra, or performing fire pujas or other rituals of pacifying, empowering, extensions, radfu, whatever different, or consecrations, or giving empowerment and so forth, So that is, so then at the urging of Changju Wei, so I mentioned before, he Changju Wei, he put so much effort to invite Atisha to Tibet, to bring the Dharma to its purity, because, as I mentioned, has been a little bit defiled, polluted after long Dharma. So okay. So then I, Elder Divamkara Shri, have concisely explained the path of enlightenment as I've seen. So here he says he has explained it concisely, very short summary, without going in all the details, without all the details of, different philosophy or different school of thoughts, and so many different reasoning, logic. All he didn't go in all the detail, but very concisely explain the path of enlightenment, how one practitioner from the very beginning, very beginner practitioner, how to them to practice from very beginning to the end, how to achieve enlightenment. So in this practice, there is, within this, all the practice explained, there is practice for everyone. Very advanced practice, there is that. For practitioners who are kind of, not as advanced so much, but who are medium, and also very beginner, all the teachings, all the practice are in content here in this. here, and as I've seen it taught in Sutra and other Dharma teaching. And here, Atisha is being very modest, humble, saying, that whatever I've written here, whatever I've shared, whatever is, he didn't make up himself. It's based on sutras, earliest Buddha's own sutras, or teaching on tantras, and as well as earlier masters, such as Nagarjuna and so forth. So those are based on that. And you see all the, whether it's Atisha or all other teachings, that is how a lot of the authors, they try to see from their writing, they are very humble, humility, give credit, everything for others. For us, we'll say, even we get from others, is my inventions. I found it, this is my unique. That is how we feel, when we are very arrogant or sometimes, self-importance, egoistic. But here, you don't see any, even though he's sharing a lot of them from his own experience. But he doesn't say that, he doesn't take that credit. Instead, he gives credit all to the earliest masters in saying that they're all based on there. This concludes the lamb of the path to enlightenment composed by the great master Divankara Shrigyana. It was translated and finalized by the great Indian abbot himself. So that is the Atisha abbot here. Abbot himself is meaning the Atisha. And a great translator and editor, Geveloto. And this teaching was composed in the Tibet, Tolling Temple in Shangshan. Also, you see all the texts, those which have been translated from whether it's Sanskrit or Pali to Tibetan. There's always two translators, one Indian translator and one Tibetan translator. Indian translator who is fluent and very well in Tibetan, and there is a Tibetan translator who is very fluent and very well in Sanskrit. And that is why translations are much more accurate and better. There's two persons who know both the native language, very expert in that, but also they both are expert in other language, and together. So I think that was one of the Dharma kings, Tibet Dharma kings, make sure that the translation was as pure and as correct, as authentic as possible. So with that, I think we conclude this text. So I think I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit, okay? Because I think some of you have missed last year, because some part we started last year, and then and we continue from last year, and then we just completed. Again, of course, it starts, is first is through practice meditation, being aware how precious this life is. How precious this life is. Recognizing and being aware how precious this life is. How much potential this life has if we utilize it correctly and the right way. This human life, this precious human life, this precious human life is not just to have, not to worry and have enough to eat, have a shelter, something to keep warm when it's cold, and when it's cold, something to keep warm, and to be able to, travel and do this and that. It's not just about that. If it is all just about that, there's no different from the domestic animals, your dogs. Maybe your dog is much more better. They get the food, they don't have to worry about the food. They are taken care of when it's cold, when it's too hot. And then when it's too cold, you have something to put on them, trying to keep them cool. They have shelters. People take them to walk, they can go, and all of that. It seems like they don't need so much worry. They don't have so much worry. If our life is just about that, if our life, this human life, is just about just having enough to eat and place and all that, or what is so much different, So the difference is this human life has much more potential. Our mind, our intelligence, our wisdom, to be able to use reasoning, logics, contemplations. And if we use those mind to maximum, if we use our mind to the maximum, then there's so much we can do for ourselves. There's so much we can do for others. If we look in the animals' realms, no matter how smart, brilliant they are, is there any animal you can say that has made a difference to the whole animal realms or sentient beings? But look at human beings. So many human beings has made a huge difference through their contributions in different fields. Some in medical, some in science, some in education, some in spirituals, who have benefited thousands, 100,000, millions, and even billions while they are still alive and after they died through their contributions. Not only they have contributed to the humanity, they have contributed to the animals, as well, to the world itself. They are able to do it because they have this human mind. And we also have same human mind. And especially when talk from Dharma point of view, spiritual point of view, with such human Dharma mind, through practice meditations, we can overcome all the afflictive emotions, all the delusions, all the negative karma and all the delusions. We can cultivate highest level of state of mind, and through inner peace, happiness, and, spiritual realizations, and to be able to be so much help and benefit and when achieve fully enlightened state. So that is what, first meditation is, through meditation, to have this incredible awareness of this incredible potential we have as a human beings. But even though this human life has incredible potential, if we don't utilize it, it will get wasted. So how to utilize it to its maximum? And the best way to utilize, make most meaningful, is, practice the Dharma. And practice the Dharma, as I always mention, is transforming your mind. That is the real Dharma, not just reciting something, It's not something external, it's internal. Transforming your mind from having a lot of negative feelings or thought or defilement to have less, and eventually it's about cultivating the positive mind, true love, compassion, sense of contentment, humility, practice of humility, generosity, moral discipline, wisdom, and so forth. How to cultivate, how to improve, how to increase. And through such practice, how can we be more and more benefit to others? That is what true essence of Dharma is. That not something external, it's internal. That is. So through transforming our mind, not only it change our experience, but we can be much more help to others. We will be much more help to others. We will do less harm to others. So therefore, utilizing this precious human life to direct or to focus to practice the Dharma. Not only we need to practice the Dharma, but we need to practice now without postponing tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, because we never know when is our last day here. Even though, we all I feel I might have 30 years more based on my age, but that is just a totally mistaken mind. If you really think, even in within our members, in the last few years, we have lost some members. We didn't see them coming, just like that. Just a recent one, Israel. He was feeling he had great vacations. He came, he had some kind of cold, pneumonia, and that's it. That's it. Things can happen like this. He wasn't thinking that he was going to die this year. He didn't know he was going to die here. He still thought he has at least few years. And we didn't think that he was going to die this year. But that happens. And it has happened in our lives so many times. People around us, or animals, peoples, different, suddenly. And we could be just like them. That can happen to us anytime. So therefore, not only we will die, but we do not know when we will die. We do not know when we are going to die. Since we do not know when we are going to die, it is better to meditate and have this awareness, realizations. I could die anytime. I could die anytime. I could die in 10 years. I could die in 5 years. I could die in 1 year. I could die in a few months. I could die in a few weeks. If you have that awareness, then you will prepare more for that. What is important before you die? What do you want to do? Here, Dharma, because it is the Dharma that can help you now, at the time of death, after the death. If there is something that can help you while you are alive, at the time of death, after the death, is only the Dharma, your practice. Nothing else. Our wealth, families, fame, reputation, everything. It doesn't help you at the time of death. It doesn't help after the death. We leave everything behind. Everything behind. Even when we are alive, we don't know whether they are going to help or sometimes hurt. Wealth, we think they are going to help, but sometimes, in some cases, wealth has been a source of suffering and problem for people. There's no guarantee if you have wealth that is going to make your life better and happy. It might make you even more unhappy. For some people, it happens. It could happen. It could bring more problem. And same with, and so therefore, next is meditating impermanent, especially impermanent and dead impermanent. Through meditation on dead impermanent, then to have this understanding or realization or awareness that not only death will come, but death might come anytime. And with that awareness that it could come anytime, then, we try to practice that Dharma without postponing it. And without postponing it, if we try to practice, whatever little we know about Dharma, we try to apply, integrate in our practice as much as we can. Whether you know very little, or whether you know more, or whether you know great, but whatever, how much ever you know, not just keeping in your mind, just knowledge, just, informations, dry understanding, but trying to put it into the really practice, integrate in your life. And if we do that, definitely there will be some transformations, and you will feel better, and also more peace, and you are prepared. And if the death comes today, you are ready because you are prepared. You have less fear, less regret, less of that. Because you have prepared, and whatever you have prepared. So even it comes today, you don't have so much regret. You don't have so much fear of facing that. If it doesn't come today, it's great. You have one more week to live, it's even better. But if it comes after 1 week still, you are prepared, no regret, no fear, less fear, and how much ever you have, and so that is through meditation on impermanent, that having that awareness and understanding the potential of this human life, and then trying to use this human life to full maximum potentials, and not only trying to use it to the full potential, maximum potential, but to use it now without postponing it. And then, after the death, not everything stops from Buddhist point of view. Your mind, subtle mind, carrying all the karmic seed potential, continue and take another rebirth. As long as we are not free from samsara, as long as you're in samsara, then we will take another rebirth. And what kind of rebirth do you have? Within the sixth realm, there's higher rebirth and lower rebirth. Whether we are going to have a higher rebirth or lower rebirth, at this point, we don't have the choice. We have not reached a point where we can make the choice, like some higher bodhisattvas. We follow the wind of the karma. Whatever wind of the karma blow, it follow that. And if the negative karma is more stronger, more powerful, that wind will blow and have rebirth according to that. One of unfortunate or low rebirth. If our positive karma is more stronger, more powerful, then that karmic wind of that karmic power will lead us to a higher rebirth. And so, and of course, if you are born in a lower rebirth, not only there is a lot of sufferings, in some cases, very intense sufferings, but also the opportunity to practice Dharma is very minimum, very little. Just take example of your, again, pets, okay? Your dogs, your cats, okay? How much potential or opportunity do they have to really practice the Dharma? And especially, I said, the practice of Dharma is something internal. Even external is hard for them. If you teach them how to do pay respect, homage, prostration, it will be very difficult. If you teach them to recite the mantras or prayers, it will be difficult. Some might, little bit, very little, some. Long time ago, I had a friend in here, Santa Fe. He was from Canada. I think later he went to Canada. And he had 2 dogs. And one of the dogs, he taught mantra, Om Ahum. He can say that. That is the only dog who can say that I've seen. One other dog cannot say. But one, Om Ahum. He tried to teach him also Om Mani Padme Hum, but it was too long. He tried. He makes sound, but he cannot make it sound. It's too long. But Om Ahum, 3 words, he was able to do. Om Ahum. Each time he said, he used to give a treat. I know some birds, parrot, they can learn some things, but I think it would be very hard for them to do all the prayers that we can do. Maybe they can do small, short, few short. And these are just a physical, verbal and physical. But as I mentioned, the main Dharma is internal, mental. If you teach them how to concentrate, if you teach them how to analyze and meditate on emptiness, if you teach them how to contemplate and cultivate love and compassion for all sentient beings, it will be extremely hard. So if we are born in one of the lower rebirth, if we don't think that, sometimes we think, oh, maybe it's better to come as a dog in a good family. Do you get it? Sometimes we might feel like, oh, human life is complicating, there is all this. Maybe it might be better to come as a very cute, nice dog in a very loving, good family. If you don't think the opportunity to practice the Dharma, you might feel that way. But if we really think how much opportunity for them to really practice Dharma and how much we have, then you will never want to come as an animal, in a lower rebirth. If you want to continue the practice that we have, whatever practice we have engaged in this life, if we want to continue that practice, make more progress life after life, then we need to have better rebirth, where we have the environment, condition to continue to practice. Otherwise, we walk a little bit, and if you are born as a dog, then you will lose that slowly. Slowly, so you will lose. Even in this life, if you learn something 5 years ago, then you don't learn for 10 years, then you will lose a lot of them. Even in one lifetime, whether it's language, whether it's knowledge, whatever, if you don't continue, you will lose. Same way, even so, we put a lot of effort, and then we have made some progress relatively. After 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, we have made some progress. And then if you come that, then, again. So therefore, we don't want to come as a, because I think when you don't understand that, because I see some people, saying, "Oh, I would like to come as a bird, eagles or birds. They look very eloquent, and all this, or all like that." If you don't think of that, then maybe you might feel that way. But if you really think from Dharma point of view, we realize how fortunate to have this human life, and that we would like to have that human life, even though it is complicating sometimes, even though it is not easy, and it can be complicating at the same time. But there is so much potential if we direct our right energy in the right directions. And so with that, so after that, so we'll be born if we're born in lower rebirth, not only there is suffering, but also the optional practice, the Dharma, become very, very minimum, very little, very difficult. And so therefore, with that understanding, that realization, we try to generate a strong wish to come as a human being, for example, in a higher rebirth instead of lower rebirth, in a higher rebirth, such as human life, trying to develop a strong wish and not wanting to born in a lower rebirth, and that wish, not wanting to born in the lower rebirth, and the wish to free from the lower rebirth and samsara, and not only oneself, but for the all sentient beings, and we go for refuge. Then we go for refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, in order to liberate oneself and all sentient beings from all the sufferings and the cause of all the suffering, all the negative karma, contaminated karma, and all the delusions, in order to liberate from that, in order to do that, and especially from the lower rebirth, because if we are in a lower rebirth, we will not have the opportunity to practice Dharma. With that, then we go refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and not only going to the refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Once we have gone Buddha Dhamma Sangha, it's not enough just going to the refuge. If you don't follow that, then trying to follow the precept of the going to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And the precept, especially going to the Dharma refuge, is, not to harm sentient beings, intentionally knowingly, not to harm sentient beings, and as not to hurt and harm other sentient beings, then we try to practice, the practice, the precepts of refraining from 10 non-virtuous actions and engaging in 10 virtuous actions. So we try to live our life. We try to live our life according to that principle. According to that principle, that value, based on not wanting to hurt, not wanting to harm, other sentient beings, then, we try to stop killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, through that which we hurt others, harm others and ourselves. We try to avoid telling lie, engaging in divisive speech, engaging in a very harsh speech, and engaging in idle, meaningless gossips, because again, through such speech, it hurts, harm others and oneself. And trying to avoid having a covetousness mind, ill will feeling, wrong views, because again, when we have that, it harms, it hurts us. Also, due to those feelings, then it leads to our action that hurts and harm others. So we try to avoid that, and through that avoiding and living your life according to that, then we create a cause and condition to have a better, higher rebirth in the futures. Like everything is all about creating cause and conditions, and the cause and condition for higher rebirth is moral discipline on the basic level, refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions, and then supported the practice of generosity and pure prayer, dedications, and other practices. And so, and in order to have a better understanding of how our karma, how our actions or karma lead to either low rebirth or high rebirth, or happiness or suffering within those rebirth, then we have to have some understanding of karma, and then, therefore, again, meditating, contemplating on karma, come within this practice. So, as we said, so these are the part of the common practice of the what we call small scope at the very beginning stages. Common, we call common because this is a practice that can be practiced by the bodhisattvas and non-bodhisattvas. It's common to that, or common between small scope, middle scope, and great scope. So even we have, try to live our life more virtuous, more kind, more positive, and engage, avoiding from hurting and harming others, and trying to be more kind, more compassionate. Through that, then by creating such cause and condition, then we have high rebirth, and even we have high rebirth, such as human beings, as a human life. Still, it's not free from the problems, sufferings. Even as a human beings, even as ordinary human beings, samsaric human beings, even if we come as a samsaric ordinary human beings, driven by the karma and the delusions, again, we cannot escape the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, death, and all other suffering that come in, If you don't have a relationship, there is problem. If you have a relationship, there is problem. If you don't have wealth, there is problem. We suffer. We wish we have wealth. Once you have wealth, it becomes another problem. Isn't it? When you don't have a house, you wish you have a house. Once you have a house, it comes with a lot of problems. A lot of worry, a lot of fear, taking care of it, so much or something get broken down, then you need to fix it. All this, when you don't have that, you feel like you need to have, you have pain, sufferings, not being happy and satisfied. You wish you have. Same with cars, same with everything, reputation, fame. When you don't have fame, you wish you have fame. Once you have fame, you wish you could escape that. I mean, that is what don't we see all these celebrities? They don't have good life. They cannot be normal. Everyone is, even when they are trying to have normal food, people come and say, can I take pictures? Can I have autograph? All, I'm sure many of them wish they don't have that now. Before, they wanted to have that. But once they have, it comes with another. So that is life, samsara, because of our dissatisfied mind. Because of our dissatisfied mind, that is why. If I have this, if I don't have this, I wish I would have one have. If I have this, then it becomes a problem. And I wish I don't. No matter what happens, you are never always dissatisfied. And so, there's so much pain and suffering. So with that understanding, as long as we are in samsara, as long as our life is driven by contaminated karma and the delusions, it doesn't matter whether you are in a high rebirth or low rebirth, there is still sufferings. Of course, low rebirth has more sufferings and less optional practice, but in terms of pain and suffering, there's sufferings, And so with that understanding, meditation, understanding, awareness, then we try to develop a strong wish to free, not only from the low rebirth, but from the whole samsara completely. Cultivate a strong wish to free ourselves from the root of all those samsara and suffering, the delusions, the karma and the delusions, And with that strong wish to free from the samsara and cause of samsara, and wish to achieve really lasting true happiness, so then that is, so here not only from low rebirth and gross suffering, but even from all the subtle sufferings and the cause of all the suffering. And then that is the wish to achieve liberation, the wish to liberate from them is the renunciations, and in order to free ourselves from all the suffering, all the delusions, then we need to engage in the practice of very high training, moral discipline, mental concentration, and the wisdom. We need to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness that can act as a direct antidote towards the ignorance, which is the root of all the delusions. And in order to have a special insight of the wisdom realizing emptiness, then we need to have a shamatha. In order to do the shamatha, then we need a good foundation of moral discipline. So we need to practice in higher training. And that very higher training is the path to liberate and free from the samsara and the delusions. And so that is the practice of common practice of middle school. And even we are able to free ourselves from the samsara and the delusions and the sufferings. But if the mother sentient being was suffering, how can you be okay with that? How can you be satisfied when everyone you're most loving, kind, caring, compassion, and from who is very dear to you, near to you, close to you, when they are suffering and, pretending you don't see them, pretending that they are not suffering, pretending that you don't see them and just be so concerned, it's not possible. It's not from Dharma point of view, from non-Dharma point of view, absolutely not from the Bodhisattva's point of view. or practice point of view. So not only then cultivating a strong love and compassion, not only you want to free yourself from the suffering and cause of suffering, but the wish to liberate each and every sentient beings. Each and every sentient being who are like myself, who do not wish suffering, who want to be happy and who are suffering, wanting to free them from their suffering and cause of suffering, wanting to lead them to the true happiness and cause of happiness. With that, then we try to cultivate true love and compassion mind. With that true love and compassion mind, then when we try to liberate them from suffering and when we try to lead them to happiness, trying to help them, how much we can help at the moment is very, very limited, very small, temporary, samsaric help, temporary help. And then in order to really help them, the greatest help, not just samsaric help, the great help, not temporary, but great help, and not only for one, for all sentient beings, without any limitation. Then we understand we can only do that if we can achieve fully enlightenment. We can only be able to do that only if we can achieve enlightenment. If we cannot achieve enlightenment, we can still help benefit, but the help and benefit that we can do will be very limited, very small. But if we can achieve fully enlightened state, then the help, the benefit will be 24 hours, effortlessly, all the time, according to the need of different individuals, and not only to really help them to overcome their own root of their own delusion, root of their own problem, the delusion, and to free them. And so then the wish to achieve that enlightenment, driven by that true love and compassion, bodhicitta mind. And when you achieve that bodhicitta mind, then you become bodhisattva. And then once you become bodhisattva, again, you are still definitely as a bodhisattva, you will be able to help so much more than before. So much more than before. But still, even as a bodhisattva, you still have limitation because you still haven't overcome all the delusion, all the obscuration. You haven't still actualized all the positive qualities. And then on the bodhisattvas, then engage in the bodhisattva practice such as six perfection, 4 means of gathering sentient beings and helping them and so forth, or 10 perfections, and gradually progressing from one path to another path, from one bhumi to another bhumi. And as you develop more and more, you have more and more ability to be more help, more benefit. You are able to help more, you have more ability to help more as you progress, and you are able to help more and more. And then eventually to achieve fully enlightenment and then to be greatest benefit. So that is the path, the gradual path from the very beginning to the enlightenment, the result, fully enlightenment. And that is how here that the author here explained. And of course, in order to achieve that fully enlightenment, and then the Sutra path and Tantric path, and Tantric path is supposed to be more quick path, easy path, but it is only easy and quick path only you have the foundations. If you don't have the foundations, then it will be longer path. It will be more difficult path. So but if you have really the good foundations of the Sutra path, renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness, all of that, then on the basis of that foundation, then if you apply some of the method, then it can be easy and quick path. Okay, so I think that is summarized. So I can take one or two questions if there is any questions. Yeah.
Ursula, sorry,
Okay.
this was.
Sylvia Surratt mentioned that one of her cockatoos can say Om Mani Padme Hum.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And by able to say that, I think the code is creating a lot of merit. Make other people happy too.
So Karen Peterson, hi. So the bodhisattva that you're talking about helping others, practically speaking, are you talking about through being a teacher, through kind acts? How does that help manifest itself? And secondly, unrelated, historically, there's a lot of, in terms of the highest tantric practitioners, of practitioners having female consorts. But is there any historical record in general of highest practitioner women having male consorts? I mean, it is 2023. I figure I had to ask this question.
With the first questions, yeah, different bodhisattvas can be helping in different ways. Sometimes they can help through just being who they are, through their examples. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to do anything. They practice their kindness, compassion. Someone see them, their kind compassion, they get inspired, and they want to be like them. Or there are many beings, and sometimes, of course, they might be helping through teachings, giving advice, giving instructions, and sometimes they might be helping by supporting whatever help they need. If someone needs, some kind of material help, providing material help. If someone needs some medical help, providing medical help. So, depending on needs, depending on the bodhisattvas' abilities, and what they can, what they cannot, depending on that, there can be so many different way of benefiting and helping in a way. Some through actions, some through their own practice, by their own practice. So that is, in terms of second questions, definitely, even in the deities, tantric deities, which is the female forms, whether it was a yogini or Gurukula and many others female forms. So it's same things, just in a highest yoga tantra, in that, and they have male consort. If it is a male deity, they have a female consort. So it is not that in highest yoga tantra, not all the deities are male. There are also female deities. Whether it is a highest tantra or whether it is in a lower tantra, they are both male and female deities as well. That just show the possibility for the practitioner as well.
Thank you. This is Shankar. So I don't know. I guess I have a kind of a specific question and a comment. So the question first. So thank you for talking about the three kayas meditation. Different teachers have, I've always been somewhat confused. Do you do a similar meditation when you do the Om Sabhava Siddha Sarva Dharma Sabhava Siddha Hum? Like you have the, 6 yogas says, you have the beam of blue light, et cetera, then it dissolves. And so do you do the same meditation but quickly in that one, or do you just do it out of emptiness, your eyes out of emptiness?
I think like Sambhashana, in one sadhana, there are many of them. Each time, like for example,
Right.
Highest Yoga Tantra, if you do the blessing of the inner offering, blessing of the, each
Right.
of them you do. So you don't have to do all this in that details. You just dissolve in emptiness from
I see.
emptiness that. But then when it comes to the actual, the body of the sadhanas,
Yeah.
After the preliminaries, then that is what you try to do.
Okay.
The actual main body of the sadhanas. But others, if we can do in all others, that is great, but we don't have time to do that. And so you just focus on one. When you do the body of the actual main bodies, because before that there's a lot of other preliminary practices. And so even in those preliminary practices, there is that whether it's a marriage field, whether it's the inner offering, whether it's the external offering, all dissolving, emptiness, sambhashana, all of that. So yeah.
Okay, so same in the
Same with the
Lama
sadhanas.
Lama Chopa, for example, when in the beginning where you do the Samabha Shuddha Sarva, and you arise as the deity for the purification and all that. Okay. And so comment is, so I don't know if you ever went to, when Geshe Gelek used to live in that the single-story house, that I don't know if you ever went there or not. I know you've been there to the new one, but
when he was staying with Stephen?
No, not when he was staying with Steve. After that, when he had that house, Okay.
I wasn't there.
So anyway, he had a basement, and it was a split level. For those, I don't know if you know what a split level is, but for those who know what a split level is, there's some stairs to get to the living room, and he had this big Buddha statue and tankas, and he used to circumambulate around the Buddha statue in his living room. He had this big golden statue, and he had the altar set up around it and all that. So he had a cat that used to follow him around the statue every morning. So and so then the cat got really old and she was dying. This was about 10 years ago, I guess. And so he and Geshe Gelek, and the cat had cancer, and Geshe Gelek had left the house to go someplace to visit someone. And so the cat had, it was in the basement in its little pillow thing. And so it was dying, but it had found a way to crawl up the stairs to the living room and died in front of the Buddha statue, facing the Buddha, not behind the Buddha, but facing the Buddha statue. So, all that circumambulation. So it knew what to do,
Yeah. Yeah, he has a good imprint. In regard to that, I have a friend, Venerable Pemba, in Hong Kong, and he's the co-director as the teacher there. And he sent me one video he took. So one of the students died, and they had a small dog, and no one to take care. So he took care of that dog, and so there is in the Gomba, there is, there is holy objects. And so he used to take the dog. He also does, and he used to take the dog circumambulating time to time. And then one night, the dog's very old, and he go to toilet, and then he come back, normally. So one day the dog went to the toilet, but he waited and didn't come long time. And he saw what happened. He went and the dog was circumambulating. He took the video falling, and he was wondering why it didn't come. Normally he will come, go to that. After waiting a long time, he didn't. And the dog was, of course, old and doesn't cannot walk so, but circumambulating. Wonderful. I mean, imprint. Posting imprint anyway. Maybe you have to take a treat with that. At the very beginning, yeah. yeah, at the very beginning, with the treat, even though he's following the treat, but after some time he might enjoy it. He might like it. Okay, so yes. Yeah, then yes, we can have.
Hello, thank you for these teachings. Susan, my name's Susan. I feel shy to share this, but as you were talking about these pets, I just had this memory that I totally forgot, which was, that 20 years ago I studied with you here in Santa Fe. And I just remembered that I was living in a little casita, actually right near out here. And there was a dog, there was a family home that was the real home. And then I had the small casita, and they had a dog. And I fell in love with this dog, and he used to come visit me on the porch. And toward the time I was about to move, which was when you were going to be leaving also. Anyway, this dog was quite old and ill. And the people living next door had decided they were going to put it to sleep, put it down. And I was so distressed. And I remember, I just remembered I came to you and I told you about this. And you had said, if I remember correctly, I could do Om Mani Padme Hum like 108 times for the, with the dog there, and then it would help the dog. And I remember the day they were that afternoon going to put him to sleep, the dog wandered over to my house in the morning like it normally did and sat on my lap. And I did these 108 Om Mani Padme Hums. And when I finished, the dog kind of licked my hand and then walked back over to the house.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it knew that, okay, now my time. I don't know, that's what I felt. But so thank you for that, for that suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing that for the dog. Wonderful. So we can do the dedications.
Yeah.
May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of weekend. Thank you.